August is here, possibly the last month I go without going to the movie theaters. Fingers crossed, we'll see. From a strictly watching movie and TV show standpoint, this has been a very busy month for me, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. But of course, like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Here we go. August 1st, I woke up and saw Netflix added the documentaries The Speed Cubers. Now, I love Rubik's Cubes. I used to do them a lot when I was younger, and this documentary has almost nothing to do about the actual solving of a Rubik's Cube. It's more of a look on the people behind it and the competition, and I will say is very compelling, and if you want a happy cry, go for it. It's beautifully done, and my only complaint is that I wish it was longer and maybe focus on a couple more people, but it is a great documentary. I then watched Hamilton again, and it's still just as good. Later that night, I watched North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock, and having never seen this movie before, I can say is very compelling. It's kind of like the beginning of the James Bond or Mission Impossible era, and you can really feel how this movie inspired a lot of those to follow. I then watched Lady Bird to prepare for my video essay that you should watch right now, and I watched another documentary on Netflix called Tread, which is an interesting story told in the most boring way possible that has a pretty cool ending, but overall this movie is not impressive. I then watched okay, here we go. Zindagi Ne Malige Debara. I was looking to watch a Bollywood movie, and this was the one recommended to me, and it was fun. Classic bachelor party road trip with friends movie, and I mean, it didn't actually take place in India, so I guess that was kind of a downfall to it. But let me just preface that this started a larger phase of rom-coms that I'm about to announce. So let me just clarify, most of these movies took place on my anniversary weekend out of town, so maybe that explains it. But my wife and I watched New Year's Eve, and it was pretty bad, but not as bad as Valentine's Day. And we weren't able to watch Mother's Day to complete the trilogy, but these two movies, what is going on? I know that nobody considers these movies good, but it's incredible that these stories actually, aren't even coherent stories. It's just let's take a bunch of people we know and recognize and just add these little 5-minute short films all together. Hardly any of them connect, and there's no resolution to anything, and what is this movie even trying to say? Yeah, they're both pretty rough. I then watched Crazy Stupid Love to cleanse the palate, and that, again, one of my favorites of all time. Great watch. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days was next on the docket, and yeah, it was a good time. You can really see how Matthew McConaughey rose to fame by watching these movies because his charisma is just electric watching it on the screen. It's definitely a movie that would not be popular today and fits just right in the early 2000 rom-coms. To back it up a bit, I watched the rom-com The Philadelphia Story from 1940, and I didn't hate this movie and can surely recognize its impact on other films, but it's one of those old movies that's just watching this for the first time now just doesn't quite hit right. Next was Like Father, which is a movie about a father-daughter relationship that feels like a rom-com. The character arcs that both of these people went through felt like they needed to end up in love at the end, but they didn't, and that's very appropriate that they didn't. And honestly, my rating probably doesn't reflect how much fun this movie actually was. It takes place on a cruise, so that's pretty much all you need to know about this movie. Next was An American Pickle, which I have a review on, so you can just go watch that now. Then I watched the new Netflix movie Project Power, and I was gonna do a review on this movie, but there was really literally nothing to say, so I decided to save my time. Special effects are neat. The story is non-existent. Would this have been a blockbuster hit if it was in theaters? Yeah, probably, but it's not a good movie. I then had the pleasure, and I mean it, pleasure of watching Being John Malkovich for the first time. I don't know why it took me so long to watch this movie, because I also love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I'm skipping ahead, but I also watched that again this month. But these two movies complement each other so well, and Being John Malkovich tells such a fascinating sci-fi story, touching on themes such as wanting to be loved and feeling this sense of belonging and this idolatry we have towards celebrity figures. It hit just right, and I love the vision and style that this movie made me feel. Later that night, I watched the 2005 comedy Waiting, and this movie could not be made today and probably should not have been made in 2005. There's maybe 3 or 4 scenes where I'm yeah, if I worked in a restaurant, I can see how that'd be relatable. But besides that, there's not a lot this movie offers other than just a lot of future A-list celebrities. Okay, maybe that was being a little generous because I don't really think Dane Cook ever reached the level of A-list. Next was The Invisible Man, and no, not the one that I also have a review on, but the old version of The Invisible Man. Again, chalk this one up for being iconic and revolutionary in the film industry, but a little boring to watch. The special effects, though, incredible, and it is fun, watching a pretty rough monster movie from the 30s. Next was The Life of Brian, and I'm a big Holy Grail fan, so this was a movie that I was like long overdue to see, and it's, yeah, pretty clever. Definitely not as good, and I wouldn't say as memorable, but there are a lot of really clever things happening here, and Monty Python is always going to deliver when it comes to the witty humor. Next was Planet of the Apes, the 2001 reboot by Tim Burton, and this movie is just as bad as everyone was telling me. I honestly might do a whole video essay on this movie alone because there's so much to talk about, but there's no direction, not really any story, and nothing really makes sense. It is such a shame because the original franchise and even the new reboot franchise are both incredible, and so it's just so sad to me that this movie has to be plopped in the middle and just tarnish the name of Planet of the Apes. I then watched Get On Up because, you know, Chadwick Boseman. It just felt right. I've seen Black Panther and all his Avenger movies numerous times, and this was right there on HBO, so I was like, you know what? I'll watch a James Brown biopic. And I hate to say it, but this movie, outside of Chadwick Boseman, is just like every other biopic you're gonna see. Nothing new or spectacular, and it's pretty long, and it's just kind of like a montage of James Brown singing songs. Which, yes, is great, but again, just like, we've had enough of these biopics. I will say though, Chadwick Boseman is the best part of this movie, and I think this might be like my favorite performance I've ever seen him do. The fact that he did some singing and all his own dancing for this movie too makes it that much better, and it's definitely not a waste of time watching this. I then watched Mr. Deeds, which is not as great as I remember it being, but this is definitely one of those movies that I can't justify liking, but I just do. The last thing I decided to watch was Becoming, the documentary about Michelle Obama. I mean, yeah, the subject matter is definitely fantastic, however, this documentary doesn't really do much. It's kind of a montage of her book tour, which is great. I just kind of wish there was a little more substance to it and something else to walk away with. As far as TV goes, the main thing I watched was I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is a documentary that follows Michelle McNamara as she tries to track down the Golden State Killer. This documentary series on HBO got me hooked. It's not often I find myself binging something in one day, but I did it with this, and it was such a fun watch. I cannot recommend this to anyone because it is so disturbing to watch, but if you are into true crime at all, then this is definitely a twist on that subject and for you. Besides that, I'm back in the Guys Grocery Games, and I mean, like, is there anything more to say about this fantastic show? Okay, that's it for August. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. What have you seen out of this list? What do you like? What do you dislike? Let me know. Comment below. I will see you next time.